I'm trying to solve a mystery for a colleague. Her dad found it at a car boot sale, and the seller didn't know what it was, but he did think there was a piece missing that would go into the thread. It's a wooden cylinder in two halves with a metal plate. It's not as heavy as I thought it would be, about 230 grams, 6 centimeters in diameter, and 9.5 centimeters tall. The top is a metal plate screwed in with what looks like small drill holes. We showed it to our goldsmith at work as my colleague initially thought it could be to do with casting, however it's wooden, so I think that's unlikely. Any ideas? It's a jeweler's wooden ring clamp. You can even see what looks like ring marks on the side opposite the metal plate. I think the plate may be to hammer against, and it could be hollow to allow for the jeweler to drill all the way through a piece. What is this heavy cast iron helmet-shaped thing with 3 legs and is marked with Durstwild FB? I think it's part of something bigger, as the not-so-visible marking below the oval logo shows some construction. It has a small rim on the edge, possibly to fix something in place. Any idea what this is made for? It's a mid-century hat block, also known as a hat form or bashing block. It was used by hat makers and milliners to give shape to a hat. Most hats were made out of felted cone shapes, which were then steamed and pulled over heated shapes to fix their size. The number and letter stamped on it would indicate the style and size. The feet underneath were to keep the bell shape over a flame or a steamer. The little rim at the bottom is where a rope was tied around the shape to keep tension on the material as it was being pulled on the shape. Today, there are only a handful of block shapers left. In the United Kingdom, hat block making has been listed as an endangered craft by the Heritage Crafts Association, with 3 remaining hat block making businesses still in operation as of 2022. What is this vintage plastic appliance I found at an elderly person's house in Hungary, but possibly from former East Germany? Around 115 by 65 by 35 millimeters, it mounts to a metal base and has a vintage battery inside. The big hole looks like it should hold a light bulb as it has 2 metal connections. The metal base has an extra mounting screw, and the wire also suggests additional pieces. The green thing is a button, though hard to press. It says Elfie on one side and BAH on the other. Any help would be most appreciated. It's a camera flash made in Germany in the 1950s. Elfie is the name of the small photo flash lamp that was shown at the Autumn Fair in Leipzig in 1955. It was the first of its kind to have a built-in capacitor ignition. At the Spring Fair in 1956, the flash lamp was shown with a modified plug-in shoe, which was moved slightly back to make it easier to view the viewfinder image when the flash unit was attached. What is this square metal plate with holes and bumps? Possibly to do with sewing. It was found among my grandmother's sewing equipment, ribbons, and buttons. We are in Australia if that helps. Any ideas? It's a magic loom or a magic square, probably from the 60s to 70s. Here in the US, they call it a granny square loom, used to make granny squares to turn into an Afghan blanket. What is this little figure found in Ohio behind my grandparents' barn? My mum found this in the ground when she was a kid, so probably 40 plus years ago. We're unsure how old it is or what it could represent. It's kinda hard to see in the photos I attached, but it looks like she has 200 carved into her back. I can't find anything similar online. Can anyone help identify it? It's a frozen Charlotte doll, made in the form of a standing naked figure, molded as a solid piece without joints from circa 1850 to 1920. The dolls had substantial popularity during the Victorian era. The name of the doll originates from the American folk ballad Fair Charlotte, based on the poem A Corpse Going to a Ball by Elizabeth Oakes Smith, which tells of a young girl called Charlotte who refused to wrap up warmly to go on a sleigh ride because she did not want to cover up her pretty dress. She froze to death during the journey. The smallest dolls were sometimes used as charms in Christmas puddings. and smaller sizes were very popular for putting in dolls' houses. Frozen Charlotte dolls were popular in the United States during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The dolls were affordable enough that children of the era could buy them with their own pocket money. Smaller versions of the dolls were also known as penny dolls because they were often sold for a cent. Most were made in Germany. What are these mother-of-pearl engraved tokens found in my great-grandparents' stuff? I estimate they were from the early 1900s and were obtained in the Port Adelaide area or maybe off a ship as they worked for the Adelaide Steamship Company. I have been carting them around for 50 years from my grandfather's stuff, and my friend's Chinese-Australian son just showed me how to post the question. Does anyone know what they were used for? They are Chinese mother-of-pearl gambling tokens. These were manufactured in China from the late 18th to the late 19th century. Most were exported to Europe, where they were used in card games. They come in a variety of shapes and sizes, including round, rectangular, oval, and even fish-shaped. Most are about 28mm to 55mm. I've paid good money for these tokens on eBay, and they weren't in as good shape as these appear to be. I've used them to make jewelry. What is this device that came into our local antique store? It's made of aluminum, it has electronics, and all made by the United States Instrument Corporation. Not very big or very heavy, and the knobs spin the numbers listed about the object next to it, but we don't know if it's a speaker or microphone. I believe it's military or Navy related because it came in a lot of military stuff. Any ideas? Retired US Navy here. It's a sound-powered telephone missing the handset. An internal phone system commonly called a growler based on the sound they made. I used to maintain them in the Navy. It's old and busted, and specifically was located in the officer wardroom on a ship where the Navy officers eat chow. It would have an old telephone-style handset to talk through. To initiate a call, you turn the dial to the station as noted on the plaque, then turn the crank to make a sound that is transmitted to that round speaker on the receiving end. And it sounds a little something like this. That's how they knew someone was calling and to pick up the other end. What is this measuring device found in the dirt in a parking place in an old village called Barjac in the south of France? It's a 44 centimeters long piece of brass, 2.9 centimeters wide, and 180 grams. There are 3 scales on them and red and white dots. It has inscriptions, and one of the inscriptions states combat. The measure markings on the object do not correspond with centimeters or inches. I found it in the dirt on a bigger parking spot with about 50 spots in an old area of the town. It's also a place where sometimes markets are being held, so it's a possibility the object fell from a stand and got lost on the ground. Any ideas? Please tell us down in the comments. Thanks for watching. Let's make life fun.